My name is Guy Victor Whitworth. My parents were Noreen Mary Culver Whitworth and Keith C. Whitworth. My mom grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. My dad in a little town called Mondovi, Wisconsin. My mom's mom passed away when my mom was just 7 years of age. She contracted tuberculosis. She was a nurse working in a sanatorium and contracted and died. And so my mom was actually reared by her grandparents. I'm named after a couple of grandpas, actually a great-grandpa and a grandfather, Guy Dodge and Victor Culver. They were my mom's father and grandfather. Her grandparents were very wealthy, and she was virtually an only child. She had maids in her home and all kinds of things. And meanwhile, my dad was a farmer from birth in a little town called Mondovi, Wisconsin. My dad was a boxer and achieved some notoriety. He was a Golden Glove boxer out of the University of Wisconsin, Madison. He introduced himself to her by giving her 2 tickets to come see him fight. She will tell you, if she were here, that she fell in love with his body before she ever got to know him. And 9 kids later, I'm the 5th of those 9 kids. So my parents used to tell me, as the middle child, I was the well-adjusted child because I had 4 on either side and I could learn lessons from both sides. My dad worked for the Department of Agriculture. He was a farmer during those very, very early years. Back in 1953, my dad and mom just packed up all the kids in a 1953 Chevy and they headed for Seattle. He worked in a fish hatchery for the Department of Agriculture, and then he made his way down the coast. And he had stops in Sanger and then Santa Maria. The next stop after that, he took a job working for Cal Consumers, which was a vegetables and fruits processing center. It was good, but that took him to a city called Pasadena, just down the road. Pasadena, we lived on a street called Walworth, and so the joke was the Whitworths on Walworth. I remember also in Pasadena, and I couldn't have been more than 5 or maybe 6. It was my birthday, and my parents had bought me a used bike, and the only problem was that I had chicken pox that day. And so I sat in my bedroom window, and I looked out that window and I watched as all of my siblings rode on my brand new bike. And so we wanted a tree house, so he built us a tree house. One thing he didn't think completely through was that the entrance into the tree house he didn't make broad enough for his shoulders to fit through. But it was plenty big enough for us to get through. So whenever we got in trouble, guess where we went? Right up into that tree house, and Dad couldn't follow us because he couldn't We left Pasadena because Dad was worried about the school that I was in, St. Elizabeth's, and we didn't go far. We went from Pasadena to South Pasadena, but just by comparison, I think Pasadena has 250 or 300,000 people. South Pasadena has all of 27,000 people. They are completely different cities, and really don't resemble each other at all. The first school I went to was a parochial school. It was very academic, and I learned everything I needed to know about English and math, but very little about how to throw a baseball or a football. I love to be active and out and about and doing things, and sports and girls were like my favorite thing in the whole world. I remember I was in 6th grade and unhappy, didn't feel like I fit in. I remember being chastised by a teacher, Mr. Loopy, told me to stop talking. And when I didn't stop talking, he actually threw an eraser at me to make me stop, and he missed me. I picked up the eraser and I threw it back, and I put a big mark on his coat, and that brought the Monsignor from the parish there over to see me, and he invited me at the end of 6th grade not to come back to Holy Family School. And that was life-changing, and maybe for the better. Having said all that, some of my best friends growing up were priests. Two of my best friends, Father Bradley Dusak and Father Kenneth Krause. Father Dusak ended up in a monastery as a monk, and Father Krause ended up as the principal of Bishop Almont High School. Get to church, we always went to church every Sunday, and when we came back, there was always plenty of football to watch, and my dad was an avid fan. We would check the TV guide to see when the pro football games were on Sunday, and then we would select which mass we would go to. Dad would pile us into the old blue Volkswagen, and we would travel down to Chavez Ravine, and we would watch in the cheap seats out in the home run seats. We could get seats for $1, and we would sit there and watch our favorite team, the Los Angeles Dodgers, play. I played football from the time I was 8 to the time I was 18, and that was a dominant part of my life. And some people find this really, really hard to believe, but my dad seldom missed a practice, much less a game. He would sit up in the stands and watch, and we would talk before and after, and that's really where I got really close to my dad. So in 6th grade, when they invited me not to come back, I was able to report the next year to South Pasadena Junior High School. It was a public school, great public school. They had 2 wonderful things in my estimation. Lots and lots and lots of girls, which I was very interested in. And the second thing that they had was PE. And PE was, for me, sort of just life-changing. It was the very first assembly that I went to. I sat down, and the environment was just electric. Out came the cheerleaders, the band was playing, the cheerleaders were leading the fight song, and there was a competition, 7th grade versus 8th grade versus 9th grade, who could sing this fight song the loudest, with the cheerleaders up there on the stage. And I thought, man, if this is heaven, sign me up. I just thought, it can't get any better than this.